Welcome back to my channel. It's really great to have you here again, especially if you're on a journey to speak English more naturally and confidently. Today, we're continuing with part 2 of mastering essential phrasal verbs, and in this first part of the lesson, I want to guide you into the mindset, the rhythm, and the natural flow that native speakers use every single day. Before we jump into specific expressions, let's take a moment to understand why phrasal verbs matter so much, and why they can completely transform the way you sound when speaking American English. Now, if you've watched the previous lessons, you already know that phrasal verbs are combinations of a verb and a small word, usually a preposition or an adverb, like up, down, out, off, or over. These tiny words may look simple, but together with the verb, they create meanings that often can't be understood just by translating word by word. That's what makes phrasal verbs tricky for many learners. But here's the good news. Once you start recognizing them, hearing them in real-life situations, and practicing them in your own sentences, your English becomes smoother, more natural, and much closer to the everyday language that native speakers use. Many learners think academic vocabulary is the key to sounding fluent, but in reality, native speakers don't talk like textbooks. They don't always say, "Discover the answer," they say, "Figure out." They don't usually say, "Encounter someone," they say, "Run into someone." They don't say, "Reject an offer," they say, "Turn it down." These short, simple-sounding expressions are actually the true building blocks of natural English conversation. So when you master phrasal verbs, you're not just learning new vocabulary, you're stepping into the world of real, authentic communication. In today's lesson, as part of this 3-part speaking practice, we're focusing on helping you sound natural, not just memorize definitions. Think of this lesson as a chance to train your ears and your voice. As you listen, try repeating the sentences out loud or whispering along. I always say, English is not a subject you only study, it's a skill you use. And the best way to make it yours is to speak it, to feel the sounds in your mouth, and to watch how your brain becomes faster at choosing the right expression. Phrasal verbs also help you express ideas more casually. For example, imagine you want to tell someone that you rejected an invitation. If you say, "I declined the invitation," that's correct, but it sounds formal and maybe even a little stiff. But if you say, "I turned it down," suddenly your English sounds relaxed, friendly, and natural. This is the style of language you hear in movies, TV shows, podcasts, and everyday conversations in the US. So today, think of yourself as stepping into that world. Another important thing to remember is that phrasal verbs are emotional. They're connected to real-life experiences, solving problems, bumping into people, showing ideas, starting or stopping things. That means you should practice them in situations that matter to you personally. While listening to this lesson, imagine yourself in real moments, talking about your day, telling a story, describing something that happened at work, school, or home. When you connect the phrasal verb to a memory or a situation you've actually lived, it sticks in your mind effortlessly. In part 1 of today's lesson, we're setting the tone for the rest of the practice. I want you to relax, listen closely, and trust the process. You don't need to memorize everything at once. You don't need to write down every single sentence. What matters most right now is exposure, hearing the rhythm of natural English, feeling how phrasal verbs fit into real sentences, and getting comfortable with the idea that natural English is simpler than you think, but also richer. As we continue, pay attention to the stress in the phrases, how some words blend together, and how the meaning becomes clear when the phrasal verb is used in context. This is your moment to tune your ear to American English in a fresh, intuitive way. After this, in the next parts of the lesson, we'll break down some incredibly common phrasal verbs and practice using them naturally so you can immediately apply them in real conversations. So take a deep breath, get ready to speak along, and let's dive into the world of natural English together. Let's jump into part 2, where we explore some of the most common and useful phrasal verbs that native speakers use constantly in everyday American English. In this section, we're not just listing phrases, we're bringing them to life. I want you to truly feel how they sound and how they fit naturally into real conversations. So as I explain each one, imagine situations where you might use these expressions, and don't hesitate to repeat the examples out loud. The more actively you participate, the faster these phrasal verbs will become a natural part of your speaking. Let's begin with the first one, figure out. This phrasal verb means to understand something, solve something, or find an answer after thinking about it. It's extremely common because people use it in a wide variety of everyday situations. Native speakers say it when they're solving a problem, making a plan, or trying to understand something confusing. Instead of saying, "I need to understand how this works," a native speaker will casually say, "I need to figure this out." Notice how natural and conversational it sounds. For example, "I can't figure out this homework. It's so confusing. We need to figure out where we're meeting tomorrow. Don't worry, I'll figure it out." Try saying those sentences out loud. Pay attention to how "figure out" flows together. The more you repeat it, the more automatic it becomes. Next, let's move on to run into. This phrasal verb means to meet someone unexpectedly, usually someone you know. It's not about physically crashing into someone. It's about bumping into an old friend, coworker, or neighbor by surprise. Native speakers use this constantly because these kinds of unexpected meetings happen all the time. Instead of saying, "I encountered my teacher," people simply say, "I ran into my teacher." Here are some examples. I ran into my old friend at the grocery store. Guess who I ran into yesterday? My college roommate. I always run into interesting people when I travel. Think about someone you recently met by accident. Now try making your own sentence. I ran into underscore 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 at underscore 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 underscore. Saying it with your own real experience makes the phrase stick. Now let's look at point out. To point out something means to highlight it, mention it, or draw attention to it. It doesn't have to involve physically pointing with your finger. Most of the time, it's about mentioning something important in a conversation. Teachers point out grammar rules, friends point out funny moments, and coworkers point out problems or solutions. For example, let me point out the main idea of this lesson. She pointed out a mistake in my email. I just want to point out that we're running late. When you practice this one, try imagining yourself explaining something or helping someone notice an important detail. Next up is turn down. This phrasal verb means to refuse or reject something, usually an offer, invitation, request, or opportunity. It's a very natural expression in American English because people decline things all the time, job offers, dinner invitations, suggestions from friends, or even discounts at a store. Instead of saying, "I declined the invitation," which sounds formal, native speakers say, "I turned it down." Here are a few examples. He turned down the job offer because it was too far away. I turned down the invitation because I already had plans. She turned down the proposal, but they're still good friends. Try practicing that out loud. Think of a time when you said no to something and form your own sentence. Now, beyond memorizing meanings, I want you to notice how these phrasal verbs create a sense of natural flow in conversation. Native speakers use them because they save time, sound casual, and express ideas clearly without sounding stiff or overly formal. They help conversations move smoothly, and that's exactly what you want when speaking English. Another key point is pronunciation. When native speakers talk quickly, phrasal verbs often blend together. For example, figure out becomes figure out. Run into sounds like run into. Point out becomes point out, almost like one word. Turn down blends into turn down. Try repeating each one a few times. Speak them slowly first, then gradually faster. You'll feel how natural the rhythm becomes. Finally, think of these phrasal verbs as tools. Each one helps you express everyday ideas with confidence. They're simple, but they're powerful. Even using just a few of them can make your English sound much more natural and fluent. And the more you practice them in real contexts, the quicker they'll become part of your normal speech. So take a moment now, pause, reflect, and try creating your own examples with each phrasal verb. You're not just learning words, you're building your skill in natural communication.